more time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 3, Text 4. Wow, so small. Okay, better. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. Devarshi pitri devata. Asankrita svastyayanas. Asankrita svastyayanas. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. Asankrita svastya yanas. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. Asankrita svastyayanas. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. Asankrita yanas. One moment. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. Asankrita svastyayanas. Tatpatyanscha sa bhartrika. Tasmin brahmarshaya sarve. Devarshi pitri devata. asankritas svastyayanas tatpatyanscha samvatriptika. Tasmin, in that sacrifice, Brahma Rishaya, the Brahma Rishis, Sarve, all, Devarshi, Devarshis, Pitri, ancestors, Devata, demigods, Asan, were, Kritasvasti Ayana, were very nicely decorated with ornaments. Tatpatya, their wives. Cha, and Sabhartrika, along with their husbands. Translation, the purport, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. While the sacrifice was being performed, many Brahma rishis, great sages, ancestral demigods, and other demigods, their wives, all very nicely decorated with ornaments, attended from different parts of the universe. Purport. In any auspicious ceremony, such as a marriage ceremony, sacrificial ceremony, or puja ceremony, it is auspicious for married women to decorate themselves very nicely with ornaments, fine clothing, and cosmetics. These are auspicious signs. Many heavenly women assembled with their husbands, the Devarishis, demigods, and Raja Rishis, in that great sacrifice named Brihaspati Seva. It is especially mentioned in this verse that they approached with their husbands, for when a woman is decorated nicely, her husband becomes more cheerful. The nice decoration, ornaments, and dress of the wives of the demigods and sages, and the cheerfulness of the demigods and sages themselves were all auspicious signs for the ceremony. Today we have verse describing what happens before the sacrifice performed by Daksha, and looks that is very auspicious. But we know that end of this ceremony will be quite messy. Yeah, but because today is Tirobhava Titi of Baladev Vidyabhushana. Tirobhava Titi means disappear day. I decide to show you the biography of Baladeva Vidyabhushana, because he is very important acharya in our line, and actually Prabhupada dedicated his Bhagavad Gita to Baladev Vidyabhushana. Therefore, I would like show you some very nice lecture of very scholarly devotee, Amarendra Das. You know Amarendra? He's Hindu from USA. Okay. I hope audio is connected.
Hare
Oh, not.
Can you make it louder on the? Because it's almost loud enough.
Yeah?
Almost, yeah. So if you just make it as loud as possible on your thing, I think it'll.
Okay.
Yeah, just on the volume on the right.
So, Hare Krishna, everyone. This is almost towards the end of the month. We have had a few wonderful festivals this month, but however, this month started off with a very power potent day. Started off with a day having three wonderful holy tithis. It was the day of Ganga Puja. It was the day of Ganga Mata Goswamini's tithi, and it was also the day of disappearance of Sripad Baladev Vidyabhushan. Oftentimes through Vaishnav discourses and discussions, we have chances where we can discuss about the glories of Mother Ganga. We also have chance where we hear about Ganga Mata Goswamini, but seldom do we have platforms where we discuss enough about Baladev Vidyabhushan, as His Grace Madan Gopal Prabhu rightly pointed out. Baladev Vidyabhushan is undoubtedly one of the most prominent Gaudiya Vaishnav, Gaudiya Vedanta acharyas, who has been very philosophical in his explanation and expression, and to whom we are very, very indebted, because our very dear Srila Prabhupada, when he presented the Bhagavad Gita, he actually dedicated it to the lotus hands of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is based on the Gita Bhushana commentary of Baladev Vidyabhushan on the Bhagavad Gita. So Pradyumna Prabhu was once explaining in his memories of Srila Prabhupada. He said that after Prabhupada gave the Bhagavad Gita, then there was discussion, what are the other books that should come up? And when devotees were mentioning different Puranas, Prabhupada said, I think next we should publish the Bhagavad Gita. So Pradyumna Prabhu was curious. He said, Prabhupada, but you just gave the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada smiled and he said, actually the Bhagavad Gita has many commentaries. We have presented on the basis of the commentary of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. But we have commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We have commentaries of Sripad Ramanujacharya. We have commentaries of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and so on and so forth. So Prabhupada mentioned that we can publish so many Bhagavad Gitas with these commentaries. So the point mentioned is, Prabhupada could have given his commentaries based on so many commentaries, but he presented it on the basis of Baladev Vidyabhushan's Gita Bhushan commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Also, Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully mentions Baladev Vidyabhushan's name in the interesting link of predecessor acharyas in our parampara line. We may have seen on the last page of the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, there is a very wonderful description of one acharya to another, starting from Krishna to Srila Prabhupada. There are only 32 names mentioned, but in that, interestingly, Srila Prabhupada mentions the link going from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to Baladev Vidyabhushan. So Baladev Vidyabhushan is not just a prominent acharya on the basis of his spiritual purity. He is also a very prominent acharya on the basis of his establishment of Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, which we will come to shortly. So Baladev Vidyabhushan's life, interestingly, seems to be less known because there's not much biological and biographical information about his life. But on the basis of different informations, different details and data that he has given in his own works, there are many things that can be inferred and mentioned. So today's discussion, we will take our tour onto the beautiful, wonderful life, the glorious life of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentaries and his contributions in the Gaudiya Parampara line. It is of utmost importance that whenever we have appearance day or disappearance day, different festive occasions, we are supposed to remember these acharyas and beg for their blessings on that day. In fact, celebrating festivals and remembering the Vaishnava acharyas on these tithis is actually constituting bhakti. Bhakti means we beg for their blessings every day, but very specifically we remember them on these significant days of their appearance and disappearance. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has very beautifully in his Chaitanya Bhagavat commentary or his Chaitanya Bhagavat presentation given a very sweet verse which I want to start the discussion with. He says, Ishwarera janma tithi jaina pavitra Vaishnavera she mata tithira charitra. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has mentioned that just like Ishwarera janma tithi jaino pavitra, just like we know the appearance days like Janmashtami and Radhashtami and Balaram Purnima of the Supreme Lord is pavitra, is a holy auspicious occasion. Similarly, Vaishnavera she mata tithira charitra, even the appearance and disappearance days of great Vaishnava acharyas is actually an occasion when we can remember them and beg for their blessings, remember their examples so that that can be guiding principle teachings. It could be like a torchlight when we are stuck in the darkness of our bewilderment in life. Sometimes devotees even have this question that we understand that appearance of great Vaishnava acharyas is certainly a day of festivity. It's a day when we can celebrate their auspicious presence in our life. But isn't disappearance a sad occasion? Why are we celebrating the disappearance of Baladev Vidyabhushan? Why are we celebrating the disappearance of great acharyas? Like, for example, 1 week from now is the start of the Chaturmas, the 4 auspicious months where we fast from different, different foodstuffs, but at the same time, mainly we focus on increasing our absorption and devotion. So the first day of the Chaturmas, which is, I believe, Saturday, starting the 4th of next month, is the disappearance day of Sripad Sanatan Goswami. So how do we celebrate the disappearance of great souls and why do we do that? So it's interesting that, first of all, one principle is on the day of their disappearance, they are going back to Krishna. So it's a festive occasion because they came from Krishna's abode just for us, to save us from material existence. But now they are getting reunited in their eternal loving transcendental service to Radha and Krishna. So that's certainly a matter of great joy that the Acharya has gone back to the lotus feet of Krishna. But what is really interesting on a practical level for us is that when an Acharya appears, seldom do we recognize and note his importance. Because when he appears like a child. So we don't appreciate and we don't recognize his greatness. But when he disappears, oh, he has left behind great significant contribution. So although appearance and disappearance of great acharyas is like the rising and the setting of the sun, they always exist. It's just that they manifest and unmanifest themselves. Both appearance and disappearance are equally potent. But for us, the disappearance of great acharyas is actually more significant because we recognize the significance of their transcendental personality, the contribution and the work that they leave behind for our benefit. So this is why even disappearance festival or Viraha Mahotsava is celebrated in separation from great souls. So now, with that introduction, let us get into our discussion for today. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan's exact date of birth, as far as year of birth is concerned, is not known, because as I mentioned, there's not much biographic information about his life. But one thing is for certain, that his appearance was towards the end of the 17th century. He appeared very close to Remuna in Balashore or Baleshwar, which is very famous for the presence of the Kirachora Gopinath temple and story. We know in the pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear the story of Sripad Madhavendra Puri. There, the mention of the mention of Kirachora Gopinath is profoundly found, significantly found. And we see that Kirachora Gopinath is that deity which stole Kir for Madhavendra Puri, being completely bound by the ropes of his love. So that place is so power potent. It's visited by Srimad Mahaprabhu, by Nityananda Prabhu, and so many great souls. So there, near Ramuna in Baleshwar, in Orissa, Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu appeared. His childhood name is not known, so in the ease of our discussion, we will call him by the name Baladev Vidyabhushan throughout this narration, throughout this discussion. So he appeared in a mercantile agricultural family. His father had the mercantile, he was in the mercantile class. But however, Baladev Vidyabhushan was not very inspired. He was not very naturally inclined. He didn't have the natural proclivity to continue in that agricultural mercantile business or mercantile occupation. Right from childhood, he was very scholastic. He was very intellectually profound. He was very wise and very clever, even in day-to-day dealings. So therefore, his father put him in the study of Sanskrit language. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan as a child studied Sanskrit Vyakarana, which is grammar. He studied Sanskrit texts as far as Natya. He learned dramatic plays. He even studied Nyaya, which is logic. He studied different texts as far as Sanskrit language is concerned. He even learned astrology. He even learned Vedic cosmology. This was certainly very, very significant as far as learning is concerned for someone coming from a mercantile class. But this did not quench the inner thirst and the inner hunger that Baladev Vidyabhushan had in his heart to find the ultimate truth. He was very philosophically inclined. He wanted answers to life. He wanted to know the origin of life. He wanted to know the purpose of life. He wanted to know the ultimate destination, the ultimate goal of our very being. So therefore, in this pursuit, he continued learning, but none of them completely satisfied. None of the philosophical texts even completely satisfied his inner calling. When the right time came, Baladev Vidyabhushan left Orissa and he went down south to Mysore, which is the present-day Karnataka. And there he had the good fortune of associating with many great souls. They were all from the Madhva line, which means they were followers of Sripad Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya has a very famous mutt now and even then. And that is where Baladev Vidyabhushan sought very sweet, very high class, very nourishing spiritual association. He associated with the sannyasis of the Madhva mutt, and they taught him the different conclusions, the philosophical presentations of Sripad Madhvacharya. And this was something which was very, very impressive to the heart of Baladev Vidyabhushan. It was nourishing to the heart of Baladev Vidyabhushan. So he stayed there with them, studied under them as their student, and soon, being completely surrendered to this path, he took Diksha in the Madhva line. He took Diksha, spiritual initiation, under the great souls in Mysore, in the Madhvacharya line, the Madhvacharya mutt. After taking Diksha, he continued serving there, and soon he also took sannyas in that line. So here is Baladev Vidyabhushan, young in his life, initiated not just in chanting the mantras, but also in the renounced order of life as a sannyasi in the Madhva mutt. And then he continued his journey as a spiritual aspirant. He was giving philosophical discourses. In fact, he was even challenging and having open debates with those who were ready to refute the conclusions of Madhvacharya. And everywhere, Baladev Vidyabhushan was known as someone for whom Vidya or learning was a bhushana, was an ornament. He was Baladeva, which means he was very, very strong spiritually, that his learning was like an ornament in his life. So he was certainly like his name. Many times we see we have names, but however, unfortunately, our character doesn't match our names. In Sanskrit, there is a very beautiful saying, Namah tu dhanapali tathapi sa nirdhana. Somebody could have name as Dhanapali. Dhana means wealth and Pali means a female who protects wealth. So somebody could have a name as Dhanapali, which means the protector of wealth. Namah tu Dhanapali tathapi sa nirdhana. But in real life, she could be poverty-stricken. So this is why in Vedic culture, names are given to children on a spiritual front Many times the names are also on the basis of character qualities, devotional qualities, like Sushila, for example. A girl could be called Sushila as she who should live with spiritual character. Su means Sushtu or Shobhanam, which means first class, and Sheila means character. So if someone misbehaves with the name Sushila, for example, then it's very easy to say, well, your name is Sushila, but your character doesn't match your name. Or somebody could have a name, let's say Pramod. Somebody could have a name called Pramod. Or Suhas, for example. Pramoda means someone who's very happy. So if he's distressed in life, so very easily someone could say, your name is Pramoda. Muda Moda means to be happy, and Pra means Prakrishta in a very condensed, special way. So your name is Pramoda, which means someone who's ecstatic in life, but you seem to be sad, right? Or somebody could have a name as Suhasa, for example. Su means Sushtu, very nice, and Hasa means smile. So somebody whose name is Suhasa is expected to always be smiling and happy. But if he is distressed, then very quickly it's a contrast between the character and the name. So this is why for self-introspection, names are given on the basis of spiritual qualities, so that one can introspect. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be ecstatic. I'm supposed to be of wonderful Vaishnava qualities. But why is it that I am not able to, my character is not befitting my name? So with this self-introspection, one makes spiritual advancement. Or names are based on the names of the Supreme Lord, so that those who are invoking and addressing those names, they have the benefit of Namabhas, for example. Sanketyam parihasyam va stobam helanam eva va Vaikuntha nama grahanam ashesha agaharam vidhu. Just by calling out to Krishna's names, we know the story of Ajamila and Narayana, their son, his son. Just by calling out to a person whose name is the same name as the Supreme Lord, one gets the same benefit as invoking the Supreme Lord. So here Baladev Vidyabhushan's name and character was in perfect sync, because he was spiritually Baladev, very, very powerful in purity, and at the same time, knowledge or spiritual learning was indeed an ornament of his character. Aishwaryasya vibhushanam sujanata shauryasya vaksyo yamaha jnanasyopa kshama shrutasya vinayo vittasya patrevyaha akrodasta pasakshama balavatam dharmasya nirvyajata sarvesham api sarvakaranamidam shilam param bhushanam. There's an ornament for all classes of men. Aishwaryasya vibhushanam sujanata. For someone who's very, very opulent with wealth, the ornament, the bhushanam in his life should be sujanata, humility, relatability with everyone. And shauryasya vaksaumyamaha. And for someone who's very brave and powerful, he has chivalry spirit, he's very valorous in his character. Vak samyamaha, to have regulated speech for that person is the ornament. So in this way, different classes of men have different ornaments. Jnanasyopa kshama shrutasya vinayo. Shrutasya vinayo. For a learned person, the ornament is humility. And vittasya patrevyaha. Akrodasta pasak kshama balavatam. Balavatam kshama. For someone who's very strong, the ornament is forgiveness. So different classes of men have different ornaments. But what is one ornament meant for everyone? Sarvesham api sarvakaranam idam shilam param bhushanam. To have Vaishnav qualities is actually the expected ornament for all classes of men. So Baladev Vidyabhushan, now with his learning and with his genuine spiritual substance, he was preaching the pristine, unadulterated teachings of Madhvacharya far and wide. So as he continued preaching, he came back to Orissa, he came to Jagannath Puri. And here in Jagannath Puri, he got all the scholastic scholars and the philosophers together, and he would have open debates, he would have arguments to establish the teachings of Madhvacharya. We see Srila Prabhupada also carrying this valorous spirit of breaking down opposition. Srila Prabhupada would many times have philosophical debates with his own dear disciples. And sometimes he would take side of a Vaishnava, sometimes he would play the role of a Mayavadi. Madhu Dvisha Prabhu very beautifully explains that when he was on a plane, he was on an airplane with Srila Prabhupada, carrying deities to Nairobi. They were on neighboring seats, and Srila Prabhupada said, how about we have a debate? And Madhudvisha Prabhu said, okay, Prabhupada, I'm ready for it. And Prabhupada said, I will play the role of a Vaishnav. And Madhudvisha, you should play the role of a Mayavadi. And Madhudvisha Prabhu, being a disciple, he agreed. So Prabhupada and Madhudvisha Prabhu went back and forth, and in no time Prabhupada established the Vaishnav tenets, the Vaishnav conclusions. So Madhudvisha Prabhu naturally thought in his mind, well, that is easy because I don't know the Mayavadi texts. I don't know their conclusions. But Prabhupada is a Rasik Vaishnav. He's a Vaishnav, Shiromani. He's the crest jewel among Vaishnavas. So for him he didn't say this. He didn't articulate and opine this. But in his mind, he was thinking and contemplating. So when the point he was contemplating, Prabhupada immediately flipped the table. He told Madhudvisha Prabhu, how about we have a part 2, a continuation, where now you play the role of a Gaudiya Vaishnava and I play the role of a Mayavadi. And Madhudvisha Prabhu thought to himself, now that's going to be easy because I have read Prabhupada's books and I know the opposing arguments. And then Prabhupada played the role of a Mayavadi and Madhudvisha Prabhu played the role of a Gaudiya Vaishnava. And believe it or not, dear devotees, Prabhupada still won the contest. So Prabhupada broke all the Gaudiya Vaishnava arguments and he established the Mayavadi conclusions. And when Madhudvisha Prabhu was completely awestruck, Prabhupada said, this is how you should be. You should be able to establish the opposing arguments of the opposing camp and then use your arguments to break them. He said, this is what Nimai Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would do. He said, I want my disciples to be so powerful in philosophy that they will be able to establish the conclusions of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy even after understanding the texts of the opposing camps. Establishing that and then be able to see drawbacks in them and breaking through by establishing the pristine teachings of Mahaprabhu. So similarly, we find this parampara coming down from Baladev Vidyabhushan, who was doing it far and wide in Jagannath Puri. He was getting to know so many different scholars, and his fame as a very learned Madhva follower, sannyasi, a very profound scholar, was spreading far and wide in Jagannath Puri. So that is the time when there is a twist in a transcendental Gaudiya Vaishnava twist in Baladev Vidyabhushan's life. Baladev Vidyabhushan comes in touch and in the association of a very high-class Gaudiya Vaishnava. His name was Radha Damodar Goswami. Now, just few names here for record purpose. Radha Damodar Goswami was the disciple of Nayanananda Thakur. Nayana Ananda Thakur. Now, Nayanananda Thakur was the direct disciple of Rasikananda Prabhu, whose name is very famously mentioned. Rasikananda Prabhu had preached far and wide in Orissa, in the state of Orissa, and he was the celebrated disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu. So here we are talking about Radha Damodar Goswami being the disciple of Nayanananda Thakur, who was the disciple of Rasikananda Prabhu, who was the disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu, one of the three famous prominent trinity, Narottam, Shyamananda, Srinivas, who were the first ever book distribution team, spreading the glories and the teachings and the books, the physical copies of the teachings of the 6 Goswamis far and wide. So Shyamananda Prabhu was again the disciple of Hriday Chaitanya Prabhu. Hriday Chaitanya Prabhu was the disciple of Gauri Das Pandit. And Gauri Das Pandit was the direct disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu is the direct disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So that's the line. Tracing back to Madhavendra Puri, who is the Param Gurudev, the spiritual master of the spiritual master of Srimad Mahaprabhu. So I'll just quickly repeat this for those who are writing down these names. Baladev Vidyabhushan meets Radha Damodar Goswami, who is the direct disciple of Nayanananda Thakur, who is the direct disciple of Rasikananda Prabhu, who is the direct disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu, who is the direct disciple of Hriday Chaitanya Prabhu, who is the direct disciple of Gauri Das Pandit, who is the incarnation of Subal Sakha from Krishna Leela, and who is the direct disciple, Gauri Das Pandit is the direct disciple of Nityananda Prabhu, who is again the god brother of Ishwara Puri and the direct disciple of Sripad Madhavendra Puri. So Radha Damodar Goswami, he has interactions with Baladev Vidyabhushan and he starts speaking about the pristine teachings of Mahaprabhu. He starts explaining the Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva the simultaneous inconceivable oneness and difference between the Jiva and Bhagavan, and starts explaining the different the philosophical teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And very specifically, Radha Damodar Goswami stresses his explanations on the Shat Sandarbhas of Srila Jiva Goswami. When Srila Jiva Goswami's works were introduced to Baladev Vidyabhushan was amazed by such profound, such clear, such concise, such scholastic, such philosophically deep, and yet devotionally drenched presentation of Srila Jiva Goswami. Baladev Vidyabhushan continued pursuing his fascination towards the works of Jiva Goswami, and actually he wanted to surrender at the lotus feet of Radha Damodar Goswami and get initiated under him as a Gaudiya Vaishnava. But Radha Damodar Goswami mentioned a very significant point. He said that actually you're a direct disciple and also a sannyas disciple in the Madhvacharya line, which is one of the 4 prominent lines, starting from Brahma. So since you have a bona fide spiritual master, a bona fide sannyas guru, it is against spiritual principles to re-initiate someone who's already initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. So I will not re-initiate you because it's against the conclusions of the Shastra. But however, I will accept you as my student and teach you all the principles, all the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then Baladev Vidyabhushan agreed. And there was a public festival, a public announcement, a public ceremony where Baladev Vidyabhushan was announced as a Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya. Where Baladev Vidyabhushan wholeheartedly embraced Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Bhagavan and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings as the backbone, the guiding principle of his life. So in this way, he continued pursuing his fascination as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, took shelter of Radha Damodar Goswami and asked him for instructions. Radha Damodar Goswami said, if you want to learn more, please go to Vrindavan and take shelter of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was in the same generation. Now, this is a culture that we see oftentimes, where if the spiritual master wants to send the disciple to another great soul, he's free to do that. Like, for example, in the Trinity that we previously mentioned, we see all 3 of them have 3 different Diksha Gurus, but they all united under the common umbrella, under the common spiritual auspices of Srila Jiva Goswami's lotus feet. Like, for example, Gopal Bhatta Goswami's direct disciple was Srinivas Acharya. But Srinivas Acharya was sent by Gopal Bhatta Goswami to learn Bhagavatam from Jiva Goswami. Then second example, we see Lokanath Goswami sent his direct disciple Narottam Das Thakur to Jiva Goswami for the same purpose. And then we see Hriday Chaitanya Prabhu sending his disciple Dukhi Krishna Das to the lotus feet of Jiva Goswami. And then Dukhi Krishna Das is, of course, Shyamananda Prabhu. So Narottam, Shyamananda and Srinivas had 3 different Diksha Gurus, but they all united at the lotus feet of Jiva Goswami, being sent by their own spiritual masters. So here, our Baladev Vidyabhushan took leave, took blessings of the lotus feet of Radha Damodar Goswami, and then set out on his way to Vrindavan. As he left from Jagannath Puri to go to Vrindavan, he passed through Navadvip. He was very fascinated because this was the first time he was going to Navadvip, which is the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whom he has wholeheartedly embraced in his heart. However, what he did was, he didn't spend much time in Navadvip. He was very, very interested to go through the different pastime places of Navadvip. But the excitement bubble was bursting in his heart of going to Vrindavan and taking shelter of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He reached Vrindavan and went straight to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and surrendered his life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very happy to see Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, especially because Baladev Vidyabhushan was an embodiment of so many beautiful, wonderful qualities. He was very, very learned, but at the same time, he was so humble. He was so keen in learning more, and he had the spirit of serving Vaishnavas. He had wholeheartedly embraced Mahaprabhu and his teachings in his heart, and this was very impressive to the heart of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, I will definitely teach you Srimad Bhagavatam, but I also have one more instruction for you. Very close by from here in Vrindavan only, there is a devotee by the name Pitambar Das. Pitambar Das was known to be a stalwart scholar as far as Rasa Shastras are concerned. Now, what is a Rasa Shastra? Rasa Shastra is a Shastra which explains and defines different rasas or different mellows, just like we have Hasyaras, we have Shantaras, we have Bhibatsa or Raudraras. Different rasas are explained as far as Kavya, Padya, Gadya or Natya Shastras are concerned, as far as poetry, as far as dramatics, as far as dance, etc. There are different mudras, there are different poetic embellishments, there are different mellows of expression of different moods. So Pitambar Das was a Rasa Shastrajnaha, which means he was a very well learned scholar as far as Rasa Shastras are concerned. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti told Baladev Vidyabhushan, I will definitely teach you Srimad Bhagavatam, but you please also learn from Pitambar Das. So Baladev Vidyabhushan was now simultaneously learning from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Pitambar Das. So this is where Baladev Vidyabhushan is as far as the geographical spiritual location is concerned. Now let's leave that on one side of the story, and now let's move to the political scene during that time, during that era, during that generation. We know due to the invasion of the Mughal Empire, due to the presence of the Mughal kings, especially Aurangzeb, so many temples and so many structures, so many wonderful, sacred, devotionally enriching pastime places were destroyed by the Mughal kings. Aurangzeb had destroyed different structures commemorating spiritual significance, which were established by the 6 Goswamis. And in the fear of which the pujaris in Vrindavan, they were trying to hide their Thakurji, their deities. So we know Jiva Goswami was worshipping Radha Damodar, which was personally given to him by Rupa Goswami, while Rupa Goswami was worshipping Radha Govindadev. And in this way, Radha Gopinath and so on and so forth, so many wonderful deities in Vrindavan. They were all taken to Jaipur, they were taken to Karoli in Rajasthan, because at that time, the Rajput kings were not just valorous, but they were also supporting the Vaishnavas. So they were against the Mughal kings. So politically speaking, the Vaishnav community took shelter of the reign, the rule of the Rajput kings for protection of their devotional culture. So this is why we see so many of the deities were taken to Jaipur, or they were taken to Karoli to take shelter of the protection of the Rajput kings. I think there are only 2 exceptions, 2 deities in Vrindavan which did not leave Vrindavan. One is Brinda Devi at Kamvan, and of course second is Radha Raman Dev of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he's so small that he could be hid behind a pillow. So there's no need to take him out of Vrindavan. So he is the heartbeat of Vrindavan. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say he is the Gaudiya heritage in Vrindavan. By taking darshan of Radha Raman, we get the benefit, the spiritual purification of taking darshan of Govindadev, Gopinath and Madan Mohan. So now, when all the deities were taken one by one, Radha Govindadev of Rupa Goswami was first taken to Radha Kund, and then was taken to a place called Kaman in Vrindavan. And there Radha Govindadev lived for 31 years. Why Kaman in Vrindavan? Because the Rajput king at that time was Raja Ram Singh, and his kingdom extended up to Kaman. So as we know, Vrindavan shares its border with Rajasthan. So the Rajput kings, they said, if you just bring it up to the outer extent of my kingdom, I will protect you, don't worry. So Raja Ram Singh, he had Radha Govindadev come up to Kaman in Braj, the extension of his kingdom, the boundary of his kingdom. But then he very soon, after his reign, he left his body, he died. The next king, who was the heir to the throne, he died very early. So the king after that was Raja Jai Singh, very famous Rajput king. Now, it so happened that he became king when he was only 11 years old, because his father had left his body. But at 11 also, he was certainly true to the Rajput valor, because at the age of 7, along with his father, he had visited Vrindavan, and he had developed so much affection in the path of spontaneous love, following the footsteps of the Vrajvasis in Vrindavan. He got attracted to Vraja Bhakti or Vraja Bhav. So now when he became king at the age of 11, his capital was at Jaipur. So he moved Radha Govinda Dev from Kaman in Braj to Jaipur in Rajasthan. So that is where Radha Govinda Dev moved from Vrindavan, under the care, under the protection of Raja Jai Singh. Now, interestingly, 10 kilometers away from Jaipur is, even now, actually, is a very sacred place called as Galta Peet. It's the very prominent spiritual heritage site of a specific spiritual community called as the Ramanandi Sampradaya. Now, Ramanandi Sampradaya, just a brief introduction to this term. Ramanandis are like the North Indian connection to the Sri Sampradaya of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya's preaching was primarily in South India, Sripad Ramanujacharya Sri Sampradaya preaching. But there was a spiritual and social reformer, spiritual acharya in their line by the name Ramananda. So his followers were called as Ramanandis, and they were the North Indian connection to the South Indian Sri Sampradaya of Ramanujacharya. There's only one difference predominantly. Of course, with time, there are many other cracks. We see there are so many different changes that come with time. But during that time, there was one prominent difference. Sripad Ramanujacharya's main focus was the worship of Lakshmi Narayana, while the great Acharya Ramananda, he propounded the central worship of Sita and Ram. So their sampradaya carried down the worship of Sita and Ram. Now, because their preaching was very prominent in that area, and why was it very prominent? When Ramananda was preaching in North India, his disciple and then his grand disciple by the name Payahari Krishnadas, he preached far and wide. And when Payahari Krishnadas preached far and wide, even the then king, Rajput king by the name Raja Prithviraj and his queen, they were very, very impressed by the preachings of the grand disciple of Ramananda by the name Payahari Krishnadas. So they wanted to become his disciples. So he said, I will accept you, but the condition is you have to build a place of worship, a monastery here at Galta Peet, which is, again, as I mentioned, about 10 kilometers at the moment from Jaipur. So you make a big monastery for us where we can establish our teachings and our worship, etc. here, and then we can make this our headquarters. So then Raja Prithviraj, or King Prithviraj, he agreed, and he made a big monastery there at Galta Peet. So even now that is present. Many devotees from their sect, from their practice, they go there and they perform worship. So here's an interesting twist. Raja Jai Singh brings Rupa Goswami's Radha Govinda Dev to Jaipur. But the neighborhood is completely filled with the Ramanandis. And they are so used to having generation after generation where the king was very favorably disposed to the Ramanandis. So all the kings who have come from then were very favorably taking sides with the Ramanandis. And all the pujaris around were all followers of the Ramanandi sect. But here was a twist in the tale, because Raja Jai Singh, because of his presence in Vrindavan and bringing Radha Govinda Dev and his absorption in taking darshan of Radha Govinda Dev, what happened was he was giving prominence to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. He was loving the presence of Govinda Dev. So this raised a concern flag for the Ramanandi Sampradaya. So they came to Raja Jai Singh and they proposed a few thoughts which were right from their side, as they presumed. Now, Raja Jai Singh himself was a very big scholar. He had studied the Shastras and he had his own commentaries even that he had written in multiple languages. So he was a great scholar. So the Ramanandi followers, they came to Raja Jai Singh and they said, we see that you are taking sides with the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We just have a few concerns which we want to express to your majesty. So the king said, what are your concerns? So they said, first and foremost, the Shastra describes Sampradaya Vihinaye Mantraste Nishfala Mataha Ata Kalau Bhavishyanti Chatvara Sampradayina. That in Kali Yuga, there are only 4 prominent Sampradayas. As we know, there is Brahma Sampradaya, there is Kumara Sampradaya, and then there is Sri Sampradaya. And which is the 4th one? Someone with a message? Just to see if the devotees are attentive. I can see many smiles out there. Just type your answer so that I see that you're attentive. There's one chat here. Rudra Sampradaya says, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, there's Rudra Sampradaya coming from Keshav Prabhu. Thank you. Yes, so there are devotees who are listening and who haven't dozed off to this, this boring presentation. So these 4 Sampradayas are the prominent ones in Kali Yuga. So the Ramanandis, they spoke to the king and they said, please tell us, which of these Sampradayas do the Gaudiya Vaishnava belong to? They seem to be following some 5th Sampradaya, which is unknown. So please ask them, which Sampradaya are they linked to? And then we will take the discussion ahead. So Raja Jai Singh, he wrote an open letter to all the pujaris, all the local mahants, the spiritual leaders in Vrindavan. He wrote to all the Gaudiya Vaishnava scholars, and he asked them that the Ramanandi sects, the scholars of the Ramanandi sect, they're actually posing this question, that which parampara are the Gaudiya Vaishnavas belonging to? Which of the 4 prominent, authorized, bona fide sampradayas in Kali Yuga are the Gaudiya Vaishnavas attached to? So when this letter was in the open, there was one Gaudiya Vaishnava follower. His name was Shyam Charan Sharma. So he wrote back in Sanskrit language. He wrote the whole letter, reply in Sanskrit. And he wrote back to King Raja Jai Singh, saying that actually we are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none different from Radha and Krishna. He also mentioned a few proofs that Mahaprabhu is none different from Bhagavan himself. He's Swayam Bhagavan. And we are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ultimately, a parampara is bona fide only when it's directly linked to Krishna or Bhagavan. And we are directly linked to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I think there shouldn't be much discussion about this because we are bona fide. So he wrote this and Raja Jai Singh read it aloud. But this did not satisfy the Ramanandis. The Ramanandis said, actually, they're trying to get away from the situation. This is an unresolved problem. They're giving their own opinions, but this is not convincing enough. The Ramanandis then said, actually, we have a few more concerns. We have a few more concerns, but if these followers of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't even have a proper link to the Sampradaya, then we don't even feel like expressing these concerns. So the king actually felt very dejected because he was worshipping Radha Govindadev, and he was very fascinated by Radha Govindadev, who is the Ishtadev of Rupa Goswami, who is a Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya, the foremost of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciples or followers. So the king, he wanted some settlement on this. So he actually wrote this far and wide, everywhere. And he said, I need a philosophical, I need a theological, a theistic discussion on this. And this must be sealed once and for all. I don't want to hear this again and again, either this way or that way. Either the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are bona fide and they give me substantial proofs and the Ramanandis are accepting that, or then they accept defeat and we move according to what the Ramanandis say. So when this went far and wide, it is described that this reached the ears of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very old at that time and he was busy writing so many works. So when he heard this message that this is what is happening, as far as the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are, the backbone of their philosophy is being doubted. So he was with Baldev Vidyabhushan at that time, as we were mentioning in the first part of our discussion, that Baldev Vidyabhushan was personally serving Pitambar Das, learning from him and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur told Baldev Vidyabhushan that I am old and I can't go. Of course, I have answers to all these questions, but I don't think I can go there. But I want you to go and speak. So Baldev Vidyabhushan asked his Siksha Gurudev Vishwanath Chakravarti, what is the concern? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, actually, Shastra says, Utkale Purushottame, which means these four sampradayas are bona fide, but at the same time, Utkale, which means in Utkala Kshetra, in Jagannath Puri, Purushottame, at the lotus feet of Jagannath, they should have a mutt of their own. But we Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't have a mutt of our own in Jagannath Puri. So that's another question that they will raise. So Baldev Vidyabhushan gave a very rasik reply to this. He said, Utkale Purushottame, O Gurudev, one meaning is Purushottama, Prema Purushottama Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Utkala, Jagannath Puri, is the mutt that we have. We have made Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presence in Jagannath Puri as our place of worship. So we don't need anything else. We don't need a mutt separately in Jagannath Puri, because Purushottama, as Prema Purushottama Sri Sachinandan Gaura Hari and his beautiful Antarila pastimes in Jagannath Puri is our place of worship. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, well, actually, I am completely fine, in sync with that answer, but I don't think they will agree to this. So therefore, we have to give a detailed explanation. Baldev Vidyabhushan said, but we are following God, Swayam Bhagavan Sri Chaitanya. Why do we have to prove to them? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, actually, we can just be in seclusion, saying that, well, we are convinced, we don't have to convince anyone. But this is the time to raise the flag of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. If we are true Gaudiya Vaishnava followers, now is the time when there is opposition. We fight this opposition and we establish the victory flag of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. So Baldev, you please go and you go to the King Raja Jai Singh and you present this case. So overnight, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baldev Vidyabhushan went back and forth having discussions. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur played the role of a Ramanandi scholar, and Baldev Vidyabhushan was presenting his responses. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was fine-tuning that. So with Baldev Vidyabhushan's ecstatic mood of service, with his excellent transcendental wisdom, with Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's strategies, and with Sri Krishna's mercy, Baldev Vidyabhushan set out. And he reached the capital city of Raja Jai Singh. Of course, he was not very famous in Jaipur, so it was very difficult for him to meet the king. But however, when a sannyasi enters, the king is always very respectful. So Baldev Vidyabhushan entered and he said, I want to talk to the king. So they said, what is it about? He said, I want to talk to the king with respect to the recent matter that has been raised, challenging the Gaudiya Vaishnava tenets. So they got him into the court of the king. And the king and Baladev Vidyabhushan started saying, I want to talk to you, O king, about this. So the minister in that courtroom was a Ramanandi scholar. He said, wait a minute, you can't talk to the king just like that. We also should be present there so that we see that you're not brainwashing the king, but we can present our part of the story. So Baladev Vidyabhushan agreed. So in the presence of the king, the Ramanandi scholars presented, they appeared into the scene and they were present. And Baldev Vidyabhushan was also present, and Baldev Vidyabhushan very humbly said, but yet very emphatically said, I am ready to speak with you. Please forgive me. I'm ready to speak with you and have discussions on this matter. Ramanandi scholars said, oh, wait a minute. First of all, let's start with your connection. What spiritual connection do you have? Baldev Vidyabhushan said, actually, I am initiated and I'm a sannyasi in the Madhwa line. So you can't say anything to me. I have my sannyas from the Madhvacharya ashram, the mutt. So the Ramanandis backed off, but they said, you are initiated in the Madhva line, but not all Gaudiya Vaishnavas are. So Baldev Vidyabhushan started establishing how the Gaudiya Vaishnava parampara, as far as the Diksha and the Siksha line, goes back to Madhvacharya. So now the Ramanandi scholars started. They said, wait a minute, so if you agree to Madhvacharya, which means you agree to the commentary of Madhvacharya to the Vedanta Sutra? Baldev Vidyabhushan said, actually, we have our own Vedanta Sutra commentary. They said, which is that? He said, we follow Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. We know this, that Srimad Bhagavatam is actually auto-commented. What does that mean? Vyasadeva has written Srimad Bhagavatam, or he has written the Vedanta Sutra, and then he has auto-commented on that through the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. So both the book, the Vedanta Sutra, and the commentary Srimad Bhagavatam, both are presented by the same author. Another example of auto-commentary is Sanatan Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where Brihad Bhagavatamrita was presented by Sanatan Goswami, and he also commented on his own book. So Baldev Vidyabhushan said, well, we have our own commentary, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, which is auto-commentary of Vyasadeva. So the Ramanandi scholars got up and they said, but Srimad Bhagavatam is for everyone. Where is your personal commentary? The Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. Baldev Vidyabhushan said, if you give me time frame of few days, I can present it. So the king said, how many days will it take for you to bring your commentary? Baldev Vidyabhushan laughed and he said, I have to write my own commentary. I can't bring it. We don't have any commentary at the moment to the Vedanta Sutra, but if you give me a few days, I will write it. So the king was stunned. He said, write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? The Vedanta Sutra has 550 aphorisms or sutras. And you're going to say that in a span of few days, you're going to write a commentary explaining your philosophical mindset of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy through your commentary? Baldev Vidyabhushan said, yes, I will do it. So then the king said, we need to agree upon two things. One, there should be a fixed time frame by which you will present your commentary. If it's beyond that time frame, I will announce the Ramanandi victory flag that they have won this contest. And the second thing is, if you place it within the time frame, the Ramanandi groups should agree upon your commentary. Baldev Vidyabhushan agreed. Then what happened is he came to take darshan of Radha Govinda Dev, and it's described when he offered obeisances, a garland fell from Radha Govinda Dev's neck. And the pujari came and got it to Baldev Vidyabhushan and said, whatever you're thinking in your mind, Radha Govinda Dev have very mercifully agreed. I don't know what you're thinking, but whatever you have been thinking, they have agreed upon. This is why the garland has fell in total agreement to your thought process. Baldev Vidyabhushan that night, he describes in his own words, that night he gets the dream of Govinda Dev. And Govinda Dev tells Baldev Vidyabhushan, why do you worry? I will speak to you and I will write through you. You just become an instrument. Just be strong and present this philosophy. Victory is yours. Baldev Vidyabhushan was used as an instrument by the Supreme Lord Govinda Dev, and very soon, in a few days, the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra was written. Same mood has been expressed even by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the celebrated author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he says, I am old, I am deaf, I am blind, my hands are trembling. I am not even able to focus properly, but it is the wonder among wonders that such an ecstatic work as Chaitanya Charitamrita is being written through me as an instrument. Madan Mohan Dev is using me as an instrument to present Chaitanya Charitamrita to the whole world. Chaitanya Charitamritam is Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam Giyatam Giyatam Muda Chintyatam Chintyatam Bhaktas Chaitanya Charitamritam. So in that same mood, Baldev Vidyabhushan was used as an instrument in the hands of Govinda Dev. And because this commentary was the direct dictation and the direct work of Govinda Dev, Baldev Vidyabhushan did not name this work as Baladeva Bhashya, but he named it as Govinda Bhashya, the commentary of Govinda on the Vedanta Sutra. Baldev Vidyabhushan, in that time frame, got his commentary, presented to the king, and also established different portions of his work which are refuting the arguments of the Ramanandi Sampradaya. The Ramanandis had, the scholars of the Ramanandi sect had three concerns. First and foremost, their connection to a bona fide line. Second, Radha and Krishna both are individually worshipable, but why bring them together when they're not married was another concern of the Ramanandi sect. Ramanandis were proposing you can worship Radha and Krishna in different rooms because both are worshipable, but because this is Parakiya Ras, in an unwed conjugal mood, then why establish them on the altar? We are worshipping Sita Ram in a Swakiya Ras or Lakshmi Narayan in a Swakiya Ras, but why establish Radha Krishna in a Parakiya Ras? This was their second concern. And the third concern was Gaudiya Vaishnavas always speak about Krishna, 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 but don't give enough importance to Narayana or Vishnu. So Baldev Vidyabhushan tackled all three questions through his Govinda Bhashya commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. He systematically established the Gaudiya Vaishnava connection to Madhvacharya. He established how Radharani and Sri Krishna in Parakiya Ras, they are the ultimate fountainhead of all rasas. Just like we know, in Swakiya Bhav, Krishna has so many queens, but they all depend on Krishna, like Satyabhama, Rukmini, Jambavati, etc. They all depend on Krishna. They are subservient to Krishna, point number one. But Radharani, because it's in an unwed Parakiya mood, therefore she's not depending on Krishna, naturally she can command, she can demand, she can order Krishna. So the rasa that Krishna does not taste in Swakiya Bhav because of subordination, he gets in his beautiful mood with Srimati Radharani, where he subordinates himself to the lotus feet of Radharani. Also in Swakiya Ras we see all the queens of Dwaraka have 10 sons and 1 daughter, which means the queens have love for Krishna, which is 1/12 of their heart. Because once the wife becomes a mother, the child becomes prominent in her life. So the queens of Dwaraka, they're giving importance to the 10 sons and 1 daughter, and Krishna has 1/12 of their love. But Srimati Radharani, because of the Parakiya mood of unwed conjugal love, has 100% love for Krishna. So all these different examples and different philosophical points are mentioned by Baldev Vidyabhushan. So he links Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya back to Madhvacharya, point number 1. Point number 2, he establishes systematically how Radha and Krishna worship is completely bona fide and authorized in public when they worship together. And 3, he also establishes how Krishna is the origin of Narayana. And therefore, when you worship Krishna, Vishnu Murtis are already included. His presentations were so perfect and irrefutable that the king announced victory of Baldev Vidyabhushan's presentation. The Mahants, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Pujaris and the Brajvasi Mahants, the spiritual heads, were all ecstatic. They were just one shot of setting crackers and bursting crackers in happiness. The Gaudiya Vaishnava flag was raised up to the pedestal of dignity and honor by Baldev Vidyabhushan. But look at the integrity of the Ramanandi Sampradaya. They very gracefully accepted defeat because they were convinced philosophically. It was not an egoistic proposal that they were holding on to their own understanding. They in fact humbled themselves and they wanted diksha they subordinated themselves humbly to the lotus feet of Baldev Vidyabhushan, and they begged diksha from him in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line. But Baldev Vidyabhushan refused. He said, actually, you're all followers of Ramanujacharya, who is a perfect representative of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, again, I will not reinitiate you. Just like, it's interesting, just like Baldev Vidyabhushan, who himself was initiated in the Madhva line, was not reinitiated by Radha Damodar Goswami out of etiquette. Similarly, Baldev Vidyabhushan did not reinitiate the Ramanandis, whom he said, you're all saints, you're all followers of Ramanujacharya, therefore I would not reinitiate you. So the Gaudiya Vaishnava heritage, the Gaudiya Vaishnava honor was upheld and in fact increased after this debate by Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas became so ecstatic that they climbed up a victory hill and they established a flag there. And they established a deity of Gopal called as Vijay Gopal. And Baldev Vidyabhushan, in his heart, he renamed Radha Govinda to be Radha Vijay Govinda, because Govinda got victorious against all oppositions. Baldev Vidyabhushan, when he came back to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur embraced him with tears, blessed him profusely. He said, Mahaprabhu is supremely kind, supremely merciful. He's very, very happy with your contribution. You have upheld the teachings of the 6 Goswamis. After Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur left this world, Baldev Vidyabhushan was the natural leader and the successor to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And in this mood, he wrote many, many books. He wrote books of his own. He wrote commentary to the Bhagavad Gita. He wrote commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. He wrote commentary to the 10 prominent Upanishads. He wrote so many different texts, and his works are unparalleled, certainly. In 1793, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan left this world, and it is described at that time the then king was Raja Pratap Singh, and he wrote a letter of grief, spreading it far and wide, that great Baldev Vidyabhushan, who held and upheld the glorious the honorary position of Radha Govindadev in Jaipur, he has unfortunately left and drowned us in the ocean of grief. So there was a festival commemorating the disappearance of Baldev Vidyabhushan, and that's how we know that was the year of his departure. However, there was no record of when he appeared. So in this way, Baldev Vidyabhushan was a torchbearer. He was actually a flag flutterer for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. However, after that, Baldev Vidyabhushan's parampara continued. He had 2 prominent disciples by the name Sri Nandan Das and Sri Uddhav Das. Sri Uddhav Das had one more disciple by the name Sri Uddhav Das. Now the second Uddhav Das disciple was Siddha Madhusudan Das Babaji of Surya Kund at Govardhan, whose direct Paramahamsa disciple was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's Siksha disciple was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Siksha disciple was Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's Diksha disciple was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Diksha disciple was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So in this way, the same legacy that Baldev Vidya Bhushan upheld was held by Srila Prabhupada. Baldev Vidya Bhushan was like the sun, but very soon after that, Apasampradayas and so many deviant sampradayas came up, and there was gloomy patch for a long, long time. But then it was the sunrise of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But that sunrise of Bhaktivinoda Thakur rose as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then that sunrise of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which came up in the sky as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, became the scorching afternoon, noon sun as Srila Prabhupada, giving the light of the Gaudiya Vaishnava pristine teachings, not just in Bengal, not just in India, but in the whole world. So this is why, since Prabhupada carries that same spirit of Baldev Vidya Bhushan, of clearing the clouds of misconception and presenting the sunrise of pure teachings, he presents Bhakti Vedanta purports and the Bhagavad Gita as it is, as a dedication to Baldev Vidya Bhushan. So when we read Bhagavad Gita, we should be touched with this emotion that if our Baldev Vidya Bhushan had not established through his philosophical debate, then although Mahaprabhu came to give prema, although the 6 Goswamis came to expand, although Srinivas Narottam Shamananda distributed, we still would have lost that line. So we owe so much gratitude to Baldev Vidya Bhushan, to all the acharyas headed by Baldev Vidya Bhushan, and very specifically to Prabhupada for building that bridge and making Baldev Vidya Bhushan relatable to us in the 21st century. Hare Krishna.
Very nice explanation.
When we look around on the internet world of filmmaking, we're constantly bombarded by profiles.
I was also astonished
Yes.
yesterday, therefore, because I had Baladeva Vidya Bhushana ki jai.